Hello there, my name is Bryce Miller. I want to thank you for taking the time to check out this video on inspection of head of wall joints. Firestop inspections for these head of wall joints are very important. We'll probably see more of these head of wall joints than we do any other joints that are out there. And we'll be looking at these mechanical joints mainly, but we also need to touch on the most common head of wall joint that you're going to see out there. And again, these are typically for the interior non-load bearing fire resistant walls that we see out there. And that common one that we'll see is going to be caulk and sprays. That's typically what you'll see. And when we inspect those, we need to make sure that they have proper backing material, that they are the right thickness, they have the right density, that they're installed where they're at the right orientation and that type of thing. So those are the kind of things that we need to be looking for on the backing material. And of course, the materials themselves, we want to make sure that they're the right depth. So that's what you're typically going to see. Once in a while, you'll see these manufactured devices. We're seeing more and more of those out there. The key on those, make sure they're tested and listed. If they're tested and listed, that's great. And you need to inspect them per the tested listed system. That's what we need to be looking at. Now, all these different systems, they have to be tested, of course, through a fire test. We know that on all Firestop systems. However, the joints have to go through another test. That is a movement test or a cycling test. So this cycling test, basically what they do is they'll cycle these joints, say a wall-to-wall joint, they'll cycle them back and forth quite a few times. I'm not going to get into how many times or anything, but they cycle these. And then like our head of wall joints, we need to be looking at compression and extension, so they go up and down. And so they got to go through this movement test. They go through this movement test after they do it before the fire test. So this is one of the things is we want to make sure that we are checking that nominal joint width. This nominal joint width is the width that it needs to be installed to. So let's look at an example of a nominal joint width on these head of wall joints. These head of wall joints, this is an example of a mechanical joint, and the nominal joint width of a head of wall joint is going to be right up in there. And that's where the movement's going to take place. You can see here how it'll move up and down. And that's what we want to be able to accomplish. And this nominal joint width is something that's so important. We as code officials need to be watching for that. Where are you going to find it? It's always right at the top of the information, right up there where you find the ratings of the wall and that type of thing. So this is why we want to make sure that the nominal, I actually call it the nominal installed width, because that's what you need to be looking for. They'll also have some other percentages of movement that you have on that listing. You do not have to worry about those percentages. The only thing we as code officials need to be looking for is that nominal installed width. Nominal joint width is going to be, again, in this case, it's going to be right up there. So these kind of systems, again, need to be designed by the structural engineer. Now, one of the things is we need to be inspecting this at the framing inspection. And we're going to look at that next. Well, one of the things is, as far as inspecting these at the framing inspection, you know, this is why we need to have the plans examiners involved in this process. So they can help when the inspector's out in the field, they're not the bad guy. And so that's one of the things is when they're looking at this at the framing inspection and so forth, they know that everything's covered because the plans examiner had that in the submittals and made sure that everybody was aware of what was going on, the method of inspections and so forth. So what do we look at for the framing inspection? Let's look at this system here. One of the things, the main thing that we need to be looking for is this right here. The UL label is so important. You'll find these about every 10 feet. And these UL labels are listed right on top of these mechanical joints. Okay? Now, we already know that I need to look at the nominal joint width at the framing inspection. We also need to look at something else. And that is, a lot of you that have been in construction like myself, we know that, you know, these studs here are going to flop around when we have this installed. Because remember, this is just installed to the top of the roof or floor deck. And so we have these flopping around. So what they'll do is they'll put a little temporary screw in here. And that's fine. They can do that. Temporary screw. They need to remove them. And a lot of times they do not. And so that's why we need to watch that. So these are the kind of things that you'll be checking on the framing inspection. And so the next thing is, after the framing inspection, you might have to go through the final inspection. So when do you look at it there? When you see it all done? The thing you look for there is, believe it or not, once in a while they'll go ahead and they'll screw off at the bottom and not just the top. Remember, top track is the only one this overlapping sheetrock should be designed to. And again, unfortunately, those drywallers, they really do not understand, how to nail this off. So that's why we need to make sure that they are educated properly in that area. So now one of the things is that we're seeing something else that's happening quite a bit. We're seeing that architects and actually code officials are saying, hey, this is what you need to put in. They're not tested listed systems. And what they do is the contractor says, hey, we can save you some money. All we need to do is we need to go ahead and take a deep laid track. I know this is a slotted track, but we'll take a deep laid track and we'll put just a little piece of sheetrock on the side like we see here. Well, if you put a little piece of sheetrock on the side, you know what's going to happen to that little sheetrock. Remember, it goes right up here is where they're doing it, and they're nailing all those nails and screws in there. When they're screwing those off, you know that if you went through a movement test, what do you think is going to happen to that little piece of sheetrock? It's going to crumble. It's not going to pass a movement test. So this is why this is so important to make sure that you check out the tested listed systems on these mechanical joints, if that's what you're looking at. Now, these are produced by Firetrack. Firetrack is, actually they had the patent on this for years, not anymore, but they did have the patent on this for years. And so one of the things is at Firetrack, they have a lot of different systems. And believe it or not, all of these mechanical joints will move up to 6 inches. You heard me, 6 inches. And that's not unusual to actually have. Like I live in a state where we have expansive soils. So once in a while, we'll have even 3 or 4 inches of movement in those top of wall joints. So that's why these are really nice systems, they're good systems. Again, they have a lot of systems that if you don't have to worry about EJs and things like that. So Firetrack's done a great job. They actually have on their website, and you can check out their website, Firestop, firetrack.com. And you can check out their website for a code officials guidelines. And this will give you a lot more details than even what I'm covering right now. So I hope that helps you get an idea of the kind of things we need to be looking for on especially these mechanical joints that you see out in the field for these head of wall joints. Hope everything's gone well for you. Take care. Thank you very much for the time together today. Bye now.